right. Well, first off, I want to thank you, and I want to thank the Small Business Center of Excellence for having us on the webinar here. We're very honored. And today, what we really want to do, part of our presentation is if you could walk away with a couple of nuggets or a couple of things to take a look at in your organizations and kind of, evaluate where you are compared to some of the information that I give to you today. That's exactly what I want to be able to do today. So with that, why don't we jump right into it? What is the talent war, right? The talent war is really the increasing competitive landscape for attracting and retaining key talent. That's known as the talent war. And actually, it really started back in the 90s. The terms, war for talent, talent war, the war on talent really bubbled up in the 90s. And actually, in that time, McKinsey did a study, and they found that in years ahead, that an organization's success is really going to be dependent on how organizations will be able to attract and retain employees. In our current state right now, in terms of the employment market, we see a very low unemployment rate. And I have the next slide that we'll go to, I'll show and I'll explain what that is attributed to. Also, we're seeing multiple generations in the workforce together. We've got the baby boomers, the Gen Xers, and the millennials coming up. So we have all three of those generations really working together today in the employment market, with a lot of those baby boomers retiring or starting to retire, okay? And what we expect to see is that this war isn't going to get any better. It's just going to increase and intensify. And it's really, really important that companies have a well-developed process, and the candidate-employee experience has to improve in order to attract the right talent. Also, they're going to be able. You need to have a good company culture to use that to your advantage to attract and retain employees, and we'll get into that in a little bit later. So if we go to the next slide, we'll talk about where we are right now in the where we see employment. Unemployment right now is in the 4s, okay? And anytime you see unemployment between 4 and 6%, that really is what we call full employment. That means there's more opportunities than people to fill it. Now, people could say we have people out there that are underemployed, overemployed, but the fact of the matter is that there is a lot of opportunity that's going unfilled because the employment rate is so low, okay? From 2007 to 2017, we have seen the Great Recession, and we know where the numbers went then, but ever since we've seen a slow and steady growth. Slow and steady growth is where we are today. We don't see, we don't foresee a recession coming on anytime in the near future because the economy has grown at a very good pace. But what are some contributing factors to this candidate market we're talking about? Demographic changes. We see a lot of the baby boomers leaving, right, the workforce. We talked about the market conditions. We went through the recession, and now we've seen slow and steady growth. There's been a lot of consolidation. Private equity has played a big part in this. We specialize here at the Overture Group, really working with privately held and mid-sized businesses, so we're seeing a lot of that. Ownership succession. A lot of owners selling their businesses and wanting to get out, which is creating more and more opportunity, as well as the increased regulations. Government putting more and more regulation. So all of this has really contributed to it being a candidate market and escalating the talent war. So how do you win the talent war? Real simple. You got to attract, motivate, and retain. If you could do that, you're ahead of the curve. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about these areas. And I'm going to give you some key contributing factors for these areas that will help you succeed in the war for talent. So let's first talk about how do we attract, employees and key leaders in the organization. The first thing you have to make sure is that there's a good culture. Okay? Organizations that have a well-defined culture will win the war on talent. They'll be able to attract the talent they need necessary, okay? They understand what their visions, what their values are, and what their beliefs are. It's very, very important that a well-defined culture is what your organization has. You could have the greatest strategy in the world, but if you don't have a culture that helps you retain and attract employees, you will not be winning the war on talent. You need to have a solid brand. Heather, can you, the next slide, please? A solid brand. You have to know what your brand is and an easy way for people to understand it. We also did a C-suite survey for talent issues earlier this year, and some of the top issues that our clients are facing are, putting in good compensation structures and benefits. If you have that, you have a great opportunity to win the war. Also, understanding expectations, understanding the job, understanding the roles. When we work with a lot of clients, sometimes they don't even have a well-defined position description. The way you will attract good talent is making sure that the roles are defined and what is expected of you in the organization. The upfront understanding is going to be a key. Also, a very good onboarding process. Work environment needs to fit. All right? Understanding what type of work environment you have and what work environment you have to offer. And the candidates you're trying to attract, do they parallel that? Do they fit it? It's very important when we look at fit. Also, having a strong social media strategy. If you don't have a strong social media strategy in your organization, you're behind the 8 ball. You need to be on Facebook. You need to be on LinkedIn. This is a great way to get your brand out there using social media. Also, build a culture of recruiting. We say ABR, always be recruiting. Not just hiring for an opening, but looking for candidates on a consistent basis that fit your culture. If you build a great culture and you have the other keys in place, also your employees will help you recruit for you. Okay? I want to spend a little time on the next slide really talking about brand and brand recognition. The brand and how you brand your organization is extremely important. And according to LinkedIn, 62% of all global recruiting leaders cite employee brands as a top priority in attracting talent. You have to know your brand, and you have to be able to communicate your brand. Your brand has to reflect your internal culture, okay? You also have to be able to answer the questions, why do your employees want to work for you and work with you? What is so unique about your organization's culture? And what is it like to work in your organization? You have to have a consistent message throughout your organization, from the CEO down to the shop floor person. That consistent message and branding is extremely, extremely important. That's why everybody has to live that culture in their brand. And people, when you're trying to attract talent, when they come into the organization, they will see that. So a well-articulated employer brand and message can attract candidates and make the process a lot easier for you. So again, brand recognition is extremely, extremely important. So the next section I really want to talk about, we're going to combine motivating and retaining key employees through engagement. All right, if your employees are satisfied with their jobs, they'll be more engaged, they'll be more productive, they'll be loyal to the organization. Companies who motivate well really place emphasis on getting to know their employees and knowing what they want, such as work-life balances, creating opportunities, the proper rewards, and having those structures in place. So those are very, very important, and we'll go through some of the tactics here. First, we'll talk about retention strategies. Our C-suite survey that we did showed that nearly 2/3 of the respondents cited retention of key employees as their first or second most important objective in their organization. So it's very, very important that they recognize the value of keeping top talent satisfied. Now, what we're seeing with our clients, they're doing more than ever to really retain, top talent in their organizations. We see companies actually identifying those top performers and making sure succession plans are in place for them. Also implementing and developing training employee programs so they're progressing and so they're motivated and they're engaged. They're updating their compensation programs to make sure they have the competitive pay. So when the recruiters call them, they're not taking the calls because they're going to move down the street for a 10% increase because you have the right compensation structures in place. Because that is extremely, extremely important. So when you do all of this and you create the opportunities for them to learn and to move forward, you reduce the risk of turnover, because studies have shown turnover could be anywhere from 25 to 200% of an employee's salary. And they just don't leave because of money. They leave because of numerous issues. The top one is really leadership and being a bad boss, no opportunities for advancement, again, lack of training and development, and compensation levels are under market value. So if you have these retention strategies in place, you have a great opportunity to retain your employees. So going outside, you won't have to go outside as much to find, current talent. Okay? So one other thing that I really wanted to talk about today is competition in the war on talent, because competition today isn't like it was 10, 15 years ago. Typically, your competition was only folks in your industry. Well, your competition today is just not other industry competitors, because they, skills today are transferable in other industries. So you're dealing with companies next door, down the street, down the block, whatever, so that your competition is increasing. Also, you're competing against self-employment out there. When people are dissatisfied in their current roles, many dabble in freelance or project work. And there's a lot of project work out there today more than ever because of the skill gaps within organizations. So they go outside and they create these projects so that the freelancers, they can dabble a lot easier, which a lot of that now moves into entrepreneurship, where entrepreneurship, before you'd see more of the seasoned employees getting into entrepreneurship. Well, a lot of the younger Gen Xers and the millennials are opting for these entrepreneurial type careers. In the new folks coming up, the millennials especially, they look at careers different than the Gen Xers and also the baby boomers. Before, being in a company for one company for 20 years and moving around, that was the way they progressed. But in today, millennials' thinkings are in terms of more project work. If I need a skill, right, or if I need different work experience, there's enough project work out there that I can move from project to project. That's how I'm going to progress in my career and I'll become marketable. So these are some of the things that you really need to think about when you're going out and trying to find talent or retain talent. Is this is the competition you're dealing with. It's a different field out there. And then the last side I really want to talk about is when we did our C-suite survey, some of the top positions and the hardest positions to fill were marketing, accounting and finance, and information technology. More and more companies want to make sure they have a, especially with the internet and online presence in the marketing area, they want to make sure that their products and services are out in front with a good brand. Also, accounting. We do a lot of accounting and finance search here. More and more of our clients are looking at the analytics and taking data and slicing and dicing to make better decisions. And also, third, technology, it's constantly changing and evolving. So to keep up with the new skill set you need, it increases the competitive landscape. So basically, in conclusion, what I'm saying is you need to be able to attract, motivate, and retain to win, right? If you do everything from building a great culture, you have great brand recognition, you keep your employees engaged and retain them. If you do this and you evaluate, you'll give yourself a better opportunity to win the war on talent. So those were some of the things I really wanted to talk about today. I know at the end we'll have a Q&A session, so if you have any questions for me, feel free to ask at the end. So with that, Heather, I'm going to turn it back to you.